Good afternoon. Welcome to our conversation about Death of a Salesman. I'm pleased to have you all here. I'm pleased to have all of our actors here. We're here to talk about the play. We'll be glad to answer your questions. I'll ask a few questions of these guys. Let me begin by asking each of them, we'll start down there with Avery, to introduce yourself and let us know what you're doing in this production.
Hello, Avery Clark. I'm playing Biff Loman.
Hey, I'm Craig Maravich, and I'm playing Happy Loman, and I'm down here from New York. Avery's down here. Avery's down here from New York, too.
I'm down here from New York, too. I'm Carolyn Mignini, and I'm playing Linda Loman.
I'm Robert Walden. I'm an Arkansan, as you can tell by my accent. I play Willy Loman and try my hardest to give them the right cues.
And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Avery, this is early in the day for Avery. No, it's not really. But for Robert and Carolyn and Craig, this is their first production at Arkansas Rep. This is Avery's 12th or 13th. But you'll recognize Avery from earlier in this year. We did Henry V. And I think we did a panel discussion here for Henry V. And he was also in 39 Steps and also in Hamlet. And so we're glad to have Avery back. One of the things that I think is interesting and why I'm glad to have Avery back again and why I enjoy working with actors over time is because, you know, if you go to the Arts Center, you go to Crystal Bridges, you can see the evolution of an artist's work over time. You can look at a Picasso at this era and this era. But for theater artists, you rarely get the opportunity to see the various facets of the actor's craft. And so I think it's insightful, I think it's fascinating to have the opportunity to see a good actor's work over time and to see how an actor approaches their craft depending upon the demands of the particular role. And one of the things that Avery and I talked about was, you know, you've seen Avery, except for 39 Steps, you've just seen him in classics. And I think we talked about the fact that Death of a Salesman was the first time Avery had done a contemporary play in, what, 3 years? Yeah. And so we'll talk about what that means for an actor and how actors prep or prepare for roles like Death of a Salesman. Death of a Salesman opened last Friday night. It's running at the Rep through the 12th of May. Arthur Miller wrote Death of a Salesman in 1948. He wrote Death of a Salesman right after the success of his first big commercial play, which was All My Sons. All My Sons is a well-crafted play written right after the Second World War about a father and his sons and the choices the father makes to protect and build his family. It's a theme that colors Miller's work. Good people making bad choices for the right reasons, I guess, is one way to look at a theme that underlines Miller's work. So Miller was influenced by Tennessee Williams. He was very impressed by the work that Tennessee Williams was doing in a realm of theater that sort of transcended realism or rose above realism. So the commercial success of All My Sons gave Miller acclaim and gave him some latitude. And that latitude led to the creation of Death of a Salesman in 1948. He wrote the first act of Death of a Salesman in an evening in his cabin in Connecticut. He wrote the second act of Death of a Salesman over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. And if you've come down to see the play, or if you do come down to see the play, among the many things you'll notice is the structure of the play is unlike a traditional realistic drama, in that the play takes place, the whole play takes place in 24 hours. Willy's first entrance is late in the evening, and the play concludes, time-wise, if you track the scenes, 24 hours later. Now, in the context of that 24-hour period, we live at times in the present moment and in Willy's mind, in his memory, in his recreation of reality. Sometimes in a shorthand conversation, we might call those the flashback scenes, because they look at events that happened or may not have happened in Willy's past, in the family's past. Miller would have objected to the use of the word flashback. Miller's phrase was mobile concurrence. And the reason he used that specific phrase is because in his approach to the play, the past and the present exist and happen simultaneously. And so, you know, the title of Miller's autobiography is Time Bends. And so this sense of time bending was something that appealed to Arthur Miller. All My Sons gave him the freedom to write a play that he originally entitled Inside His Head. The original title of Death of a Salesman was Inside His Head. And he envisioned a set where the proscenium was just a cutout of a man's head, and that the play took place in this character, Willy Loman's head. And it was just the way he wrestled with the choices he had made in his life, the choices he had made in the upbringing of his family, his relationship with his wife, his career. And, you know, generally the shorthand, assessment of Death of a Salesman is it is Arthur Miller's critique of the American dream. And lots of the conversations we've had relate to and focus around the relevance, the continued relevance of that idea. Are Miller's ideas as valid today as they were when he wrote them in 1948? And so, as we approached thematically the ideas of the play, and as we approached the structure of the play, that is to say, this sense of time bending, this sense of moments in the play, scenes in the play, happening in the here and now and happening at some other point. Now, those are dramaturgical concepts that we talk about at the table reading when we sit down to discuss the play the first couple of days. We have 22 days to rehearse this play. And some of the actors began sooner than that. And some began when they all began much sooner than that. And so we sit around the table for the first couple of days, and then we get the play on its feet, and we spend about 4 or 5 days giving the play a physical life in the rehearsal studio. And then we spend a week detailing the relationships, and then we spend another 5 days downstairs on the set that was designed by Mike Nichols. And if you come and see the set design, Mike Nichols, our resident designer, who's celebrating his 30th year as our scenic designer, this is what he would call an homage to the original designer of the original production, Joe Melziner. And so some playwrights give you no instructions in their play. Some playwrights write nothing but the text. Some playwrights, like Tennessee Williams, Eugene O'Neill, Arthur Miller, write copious amounts of information. And in Miller's instance, we were very attentive to the information, including what the set looked like. And so Mike Nichols' set is a variation on a theme of the original set for the original production that opened on Broadway in 1949. But those, as I was saying, are dramaturgical concepts. These actors are charged with the awesome task, and I use that sense awesome in a variety of all of its definitions, of bringing these characters to life on stage, of creating the Loman family, and this is the entire Loman family unit here to talk to you today. But they're charged with bringing these characters to life, creating the relationships that tell the story of sort of America's quintessential dysfunctional family. And so that's what has been a pleasure for me, because we can't bring all this dramaturgical information to the table. We have to practically bring the play to life. To do that, we broke the play down into 18 acting units throughout the course of the play, and we attacked each of those units individually and then collectively as we built the story from a little germ to a big tree. I should say a little seed. It was not much of a germ. Let me begin by asking these guys some questions. And I'm going to start down that way and work my way down towards Robert. Avery, let me begin with you. Tackling Biff Loman, each of these characters wrestles with the idea of playing an iconic character. Characters that we may be familiar with from college literature, characters we may have seen on the stage somewhere else. We carry around the burden of the artistic footprint. And we have to cast that burden aside. We have to treat this play as if we're approaching it for the first time. Because if we're just trapped by our past, we'll never realize a new version of this play in front of you. So Avery, you talked about, or I talked about, the fact that it had been 3 years since you had done a contemporary play. What's that like? Is there any difference between playing Henry V or Hamlet and playing Biff Loman? And if so, what are those differences?
Wow. To me, it's kind of the same. At least in my classical work, I approach it very contemporary in my acting style with classical, with classical theater, which some directors like and others dislike. But But no, in the same, regardless if it's contemporary or classical, I just look for the humanity in the character. And I guess that's all I tried to accomplish with Biff, is just find the humanity. And there is a, this play is heightened. Like the emotions in this play are very heightened, which is very Shakespearean. Like I always say, Shakespeare is real life plus 10%. And I feel this is real life plus 10% as well. And this is very theatrical, this play, the telling of this play is very theatrical. So it hasn't really been much of, surprisingly much of a difference. I just don't ever have a sword on hand. I think it's the real main difference, but it's very, we have the patriarch, we have the matriarch, you know, it's,
The only problem I had with Avery in the rehearsal process was when it came time to staging curtain call.
Yeah.
Because Avery had never done anything but take the final bow in any of our curtain calls. So he was lost for a while.
It was tough. It was tough.
And Craig, this is your first time here in Little Rock, and your first time to perform on the rep stage. And I was interested in what one of the critics has said about your performance. I'm not even sure if you've read some of the reviews that have come out about the play.
Am I going to regret what you're going to say?
No, it was really good. But they talked about how you found that Happy in the wrong hands. The Biff and Happy are brothers. They've come back to the Loman home, and they're staying in their old room for the first time in years. Happy has his own apartment, and it's kind of the more sort of outgoing playboy of the two. And the critics said that you found a good line, walked that thin line between making Happy oafish, or making him a caricature, and making him a real person. Are there choices you make as an actor, or how do you approach a role that could easily slide into the buffoonish? And this is the fine line to think about, and I've been gratified that I believe this is true, and I've heard this in some feedback. When you read the play in college, and some of the feedback I've gotten is, I read this play in college, and boy, what a bunch of losers those Lomans are. What a despicable bunch of people. They all have their problems, and I didn't like any of them. And I think these Lomans are, if not likable, they are understandable. That we see why they make the choices they do. Comment on that for me, Craig, about how you take a character like Happy and make him honorable.
Well, similar to Avery, I mean, you have to find that humanity in the character, and I try to not think about. I can see how Happy could be very buffoonish and a bit of a fool, and maybe some people think of him as a fool when you watch the play for some of the choices that he makes, but as an actor you have to justify that and make that your own, and sort of you need to create, for me, I need to understand where he's coming from and why maybe he made the choices that he ends up making. So I mean, I feel terribly bad for Happy. I mean, when I think of the play, the more I've gotten into it, I think that he's a very sad character to me at the end. I mean, in many ways he's more blinded and more in this world of disillusionment that he doesn't sort of have the confidence or whatever it is to kind of come to the realization that Biff comes to at the end of the play. And so he's still kind of in his own fantasy, and I think that's because of a fear to really face who he is. So for me, I had to just sort of ask those questions and look at the text, and then in the rehearsal process, just sort of be open and receive to what was happening, to sort of see where Happy was coming from. Why did he make the decisions he made? And then it's everybody else's job to sort of decide what they think of him, but it's not my job to comment on the character as the actor.
And did you and Avery, I mean, you and Avery play brothers in the play, and Avery plays the older brother, you play the younger brother. On stage, there's 2 years difference, right? You're 34 and you're 32 in the character life. And Avery, I know, how old are you? I don't know how old you are, Craig. Are you guys close in age?
No, actually, he's 2 years younger than me in real life.
We're 2 years
So
apart,
exactly
yeah.
2 years younger than you.
Yeah.
And how did you guys, what kind of preparation did you guys do to become brothers?
Well, we got together.
Even at auditions, though.
Yeah, at the callback, we were both outside together, and yeah, he was sick. He looked like hell, and I didn't even want to shake his hand. But we kind of really got along, and we actually read a scene together before Bob wanted us to come into the room, and we just kind of hit it off. And then I came over to Avery's apartment after we were hired, and spent a morning hanging out and talking about the play, and just, I don't know, we spent a few hours together just hanging out.
Yeah. No, we just really kind of hit it off, and then in the rehearsal process, we just, we have this like long opening scene, just the two of us in a very confined space, the characters. So, yeah, we really did hit it off. I don't know, there's no, like what Bob said about these two, like they've known each other, so there's a week of rehearsal already taken care of. So like we just kind of run the fast track of that. But yeah, and when you audition for shows, you can, I personally kind of like to talk to people sometimes if they're open to it, just because it keeps me in a communicative, because I have a tendency to kind of zone out and go into my own thing, which as an actor is kind of bad, because then you're all up in your head. So I like to chat and sometimes like that. But yeah, we just kind of hit it off and, made fun of something. I'm sure we're making fun of somebody.
Me, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but no, it was nice. But no, we really hit it off. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. And I've said throughout this process, thank goodness that, we have a tight family unit here. Because I think it really shows in the play. He was talking about our little fight the other day. He was making fun of our fight. Were you here?
What fight?
In the bedroom.
Yeah, you like made up a scene. We'll get to that. When we did auditions in New York, and this was a few months ago, Robert joined us for the entire process. Obviously, we had talked to Robert about being in Death of a Salesman. Before we did the audition process, the role of Willy Loman was already cast. And so Robert was gracious enough to join us for the entire audition process in New York. And we read a lot of Happies, a lot of Biffs, and a lot of Lindas. And Robert read with all of them. When we had Avery come in, and then Craig came in, it was obvious, and sometimes you just, as a director, you get really lucky, and it becomes obvious. And the one thing I'll say about the cast of Death of a Salesman, the best thing I did in this whole process was cause contracts to be offered to these people and their fellow castmates. That, the cast, this is a tough show. This is just flat out a tough show to do. I would not have come to life if it hadn't been, and I don't like to get up and brag about actors in front of them, because then they become more expensive to hire the next time we try to get them. This is an outstanding cast, and that's what makes the play successful, is their relationships. Carolyn, let's talk to you, because Linda Loman is the glue that holds this dysfunctional family together. I have two questions for you. One is...
She doesn't succeed.
You and Robert knew each other prior to the audition. They've known each other for a long time. I'd like to hear a little bit about that, but also about Linda Loman, who, again, like the character of Happy, she's put upon. She suffers. Willie says, the woman has suffered.
Right.
How do you prepare for a role like Linda Loman? And then tell us about how you know Robert and how that knowledge has influenced the process you've gone through to bring Linda to life.
Well, knowing Robert opens up the work to be a free fall. I mean, we can really work together, and I trust him, and have a great time.
How did you know each other?
We know each other because I was in Robert's master class that he taught after with some students from the new school, because I had met one of the girls and done some work with her, and she said, "Oh, come to this class." So of course I came to this class, and there I was, I was the only person who could play all the moms, the aunts, the teachers, so I had a great time, and I had just come back to New York, so I wanted a place to work out, and I met this one. So it was really only about 3.5 years ago, and we hit it off, talked the same language, and the work in the class was outstanding, and your teaching was amazing. So And then we ran into each other last Christmas, Thanksgiving or something, somewhere, and you said, oh my God, I'm going to be doing Death of a Salesman. And Christy, your wife, of Les Mis, yeah, said, why don't you talk to Carolyn? Maybe she should go. I said, oh, gee, all right, where?
Yeah, right, where? Yeah, I get that a lot. Where? Yeah, yeah.
And so then I read the play. I mean, I had read the play. I'd seen some great productions of the play. It just, this play and my father, it just kills me. And I read the play and I thought, oh my God, how, what a part. It's a gift. It's a gift.
But what, and your background, a large part of your background is in musical theater.
Yeah.
You're a singer.
I'm a singer.
Has your just like I asked Avery about his background in classical theater, does your background in musical theater continue to inform your work in a play like Death of a Salesman, or is it a completely different compartmentalized approach to the craft?
Oh, no, it's the same. It's the same. Singing is just an expansion of it, a kind of a higher expression in a way, because you have the music under you. But no, it's all acting to me, and you can't sing without acting, So along the way, I never expected to learn how to act, but there was no way not to. So it's the same. It's the same approach. You layer the character, you find out who they are, what they want, how they go about getting it. And Linda, it's a tricky part, because if she's put upon pie, if she's just always suffering, so I found what I went for was, what does she have and what is she in danger of losing, and what will she do anything to keep? And it's him, her love for him. She's all about love. She's not about suffering. She's not about that. People don't know they're in a tragedy. They just keep trying hard, and that's what she does. And it's just pure, it's love, and she wants it back, because when we meet this family, the loss has really already just almost disintegrated them. And she is fighting. She stands for getting it back, because in a lot of ways, she had what she wanted in life. She's not seeking, she was born in the late 1800s, and in the chronology of the character in the piece. So we find them in 1949, after the war. So she's had these two sons to raise. She has been with the man she loves beyond reason. So we meet them, and it's kind of fallen apart. And so she wants it back. So that's the whole thrust of it. And then the loss, and she keeps grabbing at it, and it doesn't, and it won't happen. And then she thinks the boys will help, will save him, will save her. It's not just him she's trying to save, it's her life.
And that's the thing about playing a play like Death of a Salesman, or any play that can be perceived as a tragedy, is that we call it a tragedy because of the way it ends. But you can't play the end of the play at the beginning of the play. Each day, each choice is a hopeful choice, because we don't set out for things to be terrible. We set out to win. And everything about the Lomans is winning, is about winning, is about succeeding. It's about achieving their dreams. What we as audience members experience is the shallowness of those dreams. But that's not their job to play. Their job is to play, how am I going to get what I want? Now, let me go here to...
And it's funny. There's a lot of humor in this play.
That's the thing. And Arthur Miller said there's humor in the play. And people don't often talk about the humor in the play. But we by playing the ideas in the play, the humor emerges. Because there are plenty of opportunities for spit takes and other things we could have put in the play. We didn't do that.
Well, we may yet.
But that's right. But there's plenty of chances for Willie to spit coffee across the room, but he doesn't do that. But there is humor in the play. Robert, let me ask you the first, I think, obvious question. And that is because our audience may know you primarily from your work in film and television. Of course, we know Robert as a dedicated stage actor for years and years. I won't say since before I was born, but it's because But Robert's roots are in the theater. But we know Robert primarily from his work in film and television. Is there a difference between acting in front of a camera and acting on stage?
Yes, there is. Huge difference.
What is it?
The stage demands unreal adjustments, unnatural adjustments that television and film don't. To try to maintain intimacy and simple truths and deep honesty while being heard is a very, very demanding technical insistence from the stage. And it must be done or you should not be out there. And so that speaking in a voice that's not normal or natural and still trying to maintain reality is a technical demand that's hard to do. And some people have gifts of a wonderful voice, like you and Avery. They have, you know, just God-given gifts of a clarity and a strong voice. And some of us, like myself, have to really work hard to keep being understood and heard. So that's one thing. And then the physical demands are extraordinary. Especially this play, but I think any time on stage, you're going out with no nets. You can't say, oh, let me take that again. I bobbled that line, let's get it clear. You know, you can't do the things you do in front of a camera. And happy accidents in front of a camera are captured forever. It's only once that play will ever be seen that way that night. And that is some of the magic of theater. But also, you know, it's like championship athletic events. That's the energy it takes. That's the injuries you play with. The pros play with pain. Everyone will tell you that. And I remember when somebody asked Brando if he would go back to the stage at a certain, this is even, you know, when he was in his 40s, and he said, I don't want to work that hard ever again. And it is tremendously hard work. It's like, just like an opera singer prepares their life around the performance that night, what they eat when they get up, what they do, every single thing. I do this, and I'm sure every actor does this in terms of when they have their meal, what they do next.
Do you have a ritual?
Yeah, I have it's interrupted by the chiropractor and the massage therapist at the moment, but I do have a ritual. I have a pulled groin in case. I'm so glad she says he came limping home. There's a line in the play that just saves me in case I am limping at that stage of the game. But I just feel like there's some kind of synchronicity in the universe that brought me to this role at this stage of my life. And I'm still chasing it. I don't have it yet. I'm performing it because it's in the contract. I have to. I'm not there yet, and I don't know what month or year I would be, but I'm getting closer every time. Even my son said, good job on Sunday, because I almost had all the lines pretty as written. But the story of the play on a deep level is being told, on a pure level is being told. I'm tremendously proud of that. I feel honored to be in this production with this cast that Bob Hupp has assembled. I said to them, and I was not shoveling any horse manure when I said it, this is the best cast in my entire life. I've been a member of Equity for over 50 years. It's the best cast I've ever been on stage with in my life, anywhere. And it's just a joy to, you know, to play with them every night is just a great treat. And I feel like an artist again.
Well, I was going to ask you, with all of your success in LA, why would you come here to Arkansas and do this play? What's in it for you personally? And you may have just answered that question with your last sentence there, but
Well, the opportunity to do this role is huge. I mean, just a brief background. Everybody has heard it up here before, but a very dear friend of mine, like studio in 1964, and Sandra Seacat is her name, and she was working with Andrew Garfield, who played Biff on Broadway, a year before. They did a reading of the play at her house, and she asked me to read Willy. I was out there doing some promo work for the series I'm doing, Happily Divorced. And so I said, I have a plane at 11:15, the Red Eye. And in fact, I made it the Red Eye so I could do the reading. And I read with Andrew and a whole bunch of other people she had assembled. Actually, the other Spider-Man was there too. What's his name?
Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire read Happy. And for the first time in my life, I realized, my God, I can do this guy. I know him so well from all my relatives, my brother-in-law, my father, my uncle, other people's relatives. I said, I know who he is. I know how it's just, and it was such a thrill reading these scenes and diving in there and act. And then, and then at the Easter Seals ball, I ran into Bob's fiance, Clea, whose wife-to-be in 3 weeks or a month. And I asked who was playing the part, because I saw it just out of curiosity. And she said, well, it's not cast yet. We just saw it in New York. I said, yeah, how was it? Were they young, or was it wonderful? She said, it was wonderful, but yeah, it felt they were young. In fact, Bob said, you know who would be really good in this part? It would be Robert Walden, but he's doing the series, he's not available. And I said, well, I am available. We don't go back until blah. Anyway, she texted Bob, and she came back and showed me his response on the phone. It was COOL with an exclamation point. And I thought, okay, I had tickets to go to New York. The next morning on Sunday, I got tickets to fly to New York to see if I could climb that mountain, because it was the last week of the production in New York a year ago. And I saw it 2 nights in a row, and spoke to Mike Nichols, the director, afterwards in the street a little bit, and he just warned me. He said, you know, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes on stage. And I said to him, I said, yeah, I said, but I don't know why, maybe in my genes, but I can hold my water like a camel. And he went, okay, but... And now, after working on it and playing it, I realized what he was talking about. The physical demands, the energy, the ability to concentrate at that level for that length of time. That's like championship tennis. That'll wear you out. The concentration's extraordinary. The timing, the cut speeches. It's not enough to know my lines, is what I found out a little late. I have to know the words just before a cut speech to be in there, not to let the other actor hang out there having to rewrite, you know, having to make up words. And that's, and the speed and the intensity of which things happen. It's very, very demanding. And what can I say? It's just, when I saw this theater down here, and I saw it gutted, I saw it just before it was done, I saw it gutted, and then I saw it rebuilt in no time at all. This is an actor's, forgive the expression, an actor's wet dream to see a theater this beautiful anywhere in America. It's just a fabulous theater for an actor to play in. It's rare to find this anywhere. And Bob is like a like-minded person. He's just knows so much, loves theater, loves actors. That's hard to find too. And you know, that he was directing it, and he was the artistic director, and you know, welcomed me to come and read with people. I mean, whatever it took, I was going to go for it. And I'm really glad I said yes, no matter how badly I'm limping. I am so glad to be here doing this.
And I'll be using Robert's quote in all of our marketing for the several years to come. Let's open it up to questions. What would you guys like to know and ask these actors about this production or their work? Patrick, here comes a mic for you.
I'm curious, when you're into the run of the production, this was sort of your question about how do you maintain the energy, but I'm curious, are you reciting the lines to yourself during the day, rehearsing in your mind, or are you know the play so well that you're completely divorced from it and you come to the theater and then you think about it?
No. I wouldn't dare go on stage without going over the entire play every day before my performance. I think I'd be doing this in the third and fourth month if we had that long. I mean, Abe Burrows, the great director, writer of Guys and Dolls and How to Succeed in Business, I remember hearing him when I was a 19-year-old student at the Berghoff Studios. He said to us on a Saturday morning, he said, "No play is ready to open until 3 months after it does." And he said, "Takes that long to forget what the director wanted, what the lines are, where you're supposed to be, and da-da-da-da, till the actors are playing freely with each other." And we don't have that luxury. We just keep trying to come as close as we can every day to get to that point, and that's what it takes. I go over them all the time. They won't believe that if you tell them, but I am working on it all the time.
Along those lines, what we're talking about contemporary theater versus classical, I did a contemporary piece that was probably about the same size with a lot of cut speeches as Willy in a play called Pillow Man, and every day before the show I would run the lines. It took me about an hour and a half and I would say all the lines in the play. But with something like Hamlet, I showed up the first day rehearsal off book and I never had to look at the lines again. There's something about classical, it just sticks because there's a rhythm to it. But with contemporary, it's a little bit harder to hold on to because you speak complete thoughts, usually in classical theater. In a contemporary, and especially in this play, we never get to finish something because someone cut you off. So it's a lot back and forth. So you have to stay on guard a bit more in contemporary theater. So contrary to popular belief, people are like, oh, classical is so hard to memorize. Do you find it?
I think it's easier. I think Shakespeare's easier, yeah. Well, I will look at in between shows, I will look at my lines, but one thing that I always like to do is I like to go back and just remind myself of the events of each scene. Just the simplistic thing of what actually happens at the end of each scene. And I set little goals for myself for each performance. I write a lot of stuff down. So I'll write things down after each show of some new things that happened, and then review that the next morning. And sort of see what happened in my preparation that allowed this to happen, or what are some goals, what are some things, what is one goal I want to have for myself today? Like today, I just want to receive. I just want to have as much ease as possible, for example.
Right. Well, one advantage to just doing this for 3 weeks, because we really are in a constant discovery stage, is that it stays very alive. You don't blink. I mean, of course, I go over the script every day, and similarly, if there's a moment that I think, oh, you know what, yeah, I want to try that. I'm going to try that tomorrow night. Linda keeps expanding for me, but it's just so alive. We really have to be in the moment. It's a different challenge when you've run something after 3 months. It's another kind of challenge to keep it alive. Now there's no choice. Anyway, it's fun.
Yes.
I would just like to comment that the reason Avery has no problem with Hamlet and Henry V, he is actually a young prince. So that all comes naturally to him.
Question over here.
We've seen several shows early in the run, usually on opening night, and then later in the run, and always been amazed at usually the wonderful changes that have happened. So we did see you in opening night, thought it was spectacular, but already, because you're such an ensemble, what kind of changes are you noticing in the performance, having, 7, you've had previews, 10 performances or so?
6. So has it changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we had 2 shows on Sunday that, I mean, it felt like it changed immensely. For
There was confidence, and we were.
yeah, there was a confidence. There
We
was
may have been
a,
so tired that we just did. You know, when we just didn't have that bug. We were so tired, we just kind of eased into it a bit more. So yeah,
there was an ease. I felt that we were just much more. We weren't getting in each other's way at all. There was more of an ease, and it was something that I think as actors, you know, we're all very hyper aware. So I think we might have a better sense of that than an audience. But I think the story was clearer, and certain moments landed much stronger, and we were definitely very alive. Yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, I saw it obviously all during previews and opening night. I haven't seen it since opening night. I didn't see it on Saturday or either show on Sunday. And so I look forward to going back. I'll see it again probably tomorrow.
Don't tell us when you're coming.
Well, you know, see, the problem is, let's see, what actors call improvements, directors usually call something else. Yes, Ruth.
I thought Carolyn did a great job explaining what Linda wanted most of all. So I'd like to hear what Biff and Hap and Willie want most of all.
What the characters want from the play, in the play? Uh-huh.
I want the love and respect from my dad and mom.
Oh boy, do you know what you want, Willie? Let me think. I mean, I'm fortunate enough where by the end of the play I say it in a tirade. I say what I want, which is just to be allowed to be who I am and not have to live up to this dream. Which, as an actor, that's kind of a hard thing to play, though. I mean, but I have this great barfing of emotion that I get to just throw it all out there by the end of the play. But yeah, I think I just want to. Yeah, I mean, and in a weird way, I want to be loved for who I am, not for what I'm thought I'm supposed to be, I think. Yeah.
Robert, do you want to answer that question?
I'm not sure if I do. I'm not sure if I do. I like to keep some things personal to myself so I don't weaken their power. But I will say that one of the reasons that I wanted to do this play is so that anybody seeing it can understand their upbringing better, their parents better, their relatives better, and find not just understanding, but appreciation and forgiveness. As they did the best they could.
And one thing I want to mention that's apropos of nothing we've talked about, but I want to make sure I raise this while we're talking, is one of the important sort of, almost a character in the play is the music. It is, you know, we often heighten emotion, we heighten realism by underscoring it. You see that in film and television all the time. We enhance the tension of a scene or the romance of a scene by how it's underscored. And that's very true for Death of a Salesman. When it was originally produced, a composer by the name of Alex North was hired to underscore Death of a Salesman. And the music, it's an essential part of Arthur Miller's description, is what the music evokes and why it's there. And he talks a lot about flute music and how flute music, or the music of the flute, is sort of Willie's motif because of his father and other things we learn in the course of the play. And so I was very determined to use this original score, much like we were referencing the original set design. Theaters around the country had composed their own scores. They were very synthetic. I didn't like anything I heard. We didn't have the means to hire a composer to write a brand new score. So you could license the original score. And it came with its own recording. And so we paid the license fee and we received the original score on a CD, which we listened to, and it was terrible. Not the music itself, but it had been recorded in 1951. And it sounded like it had been recorded in 1951. And so when we contacted the producers, or the rights holders of the music, we said, wow, this sounds really old. And they said, oh, well, that's intentional. That's like saying, you go to a used car dealer and you say, that car only has 3 wheels. Well, that's intentional. They were trying to convince us that it should sound that crappy. That it was the intent. I wanted it to sound that way. So our sound designer, Alan Branson, found the actual sheet music for the original score with all the notations about where the music came and went in the score. And then literally we got that score 2 weeks before we opened. The Monday before we went into previews, we assembled a group of local musicians, and those local musicians, in the course of an evening, re-recorded the entire Alex North score. And then our sound designer edited it for our needs in our production. And so when you come down to see the Reps production, you're going to hear the original score that Alex North wrote for the original production, and you're going to hear it performed by local musicians that recorded it literally in an evening in our second stage. And so I think that's an interesting little sidebar about the creative process and how we took the score that was really unusable and made it into something that I think is particularly powerful for this production.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
I read a couple of reviews of the New York rebroadcast of this, and they kept talking about middle-class values, and that when it was done in 1948, middle-class values meant one thing, and the audience really could buy into it because it applied to many of them. But in 2012 and 13, middle-class values means something else to the contemporary audience. How do you all deal with that value type of performance?
Actually, I'm just going to reframe it a little bit. It's really about the dream. It's the American promise. As much as it is about the values, it really does relate. Our job is to make these people, to take it personally, to find the personal connection. But it's the promise, and it still exists. And Robert has pointed out, Bob has pointed out that often the productions seem to come on the tail of a recession, and this one once again has. It's the same promise, and it maybe doesn't always work, and it is especially disheartening. And I thought it was just an American dream, but this play works in other languages and other cultures all over the world. So I don't know, that's my take.
Yeah, I tell this anecdote only because, I'd heard it and it kind of stunned me. Arthur Miller told it, and I'll do it the way he did it. So if there are any Asian people here, don't blame Arthur, not me. But he directed a production in Beijing in the 90s. The people there seem to love the play and get it. It's a communist country. So they didn't even have access to possessions or certain kinds of dreams that we do. But some man saw him standing in the back of the theater as he was leaving and recognized him from the newspaper, came up to him and said, "How you know about my family?" So this play is going on, being done somewhere in the world at any given moment as we speak. And Bob pointed out that there's one thing about being timely, and it's another thing about being timeless. And a play of this stature is both. I think you said that.
Yes, and I think that's true. I think that's what helps us define a classic, what stands the test of time. But I also think that this play is about this sense of middle-class values. And I know that our definition of middle class has changed radically. But the part that's timeless is the relationships in the family to the idea of what defines success. The Loman family defines success through external measures. And those external measures are definable today. We can look at what we can drive to West Little Rock and look at what some people might define as success, the outward show of success. We can see how people measure success externally. And what this family lacks is an internal barometer, is that internal measure of what defines success. Biff believes he's found it, and he's viewed as a failure by the other members of his family because he found fulfillment, personal fulfillment, working on a farm in Texas. And so what touches me about this play, and I do think that it's relevant in the sense of how we put our such value on external measures of success. But what really touches me about the play is the relationship between a father and his sons, because that is also remarkably contemporary. In that, you know, I've said before that I think Willy Loman was the first helicopter parent, because he was so attentive to the upbringing of his children. He hovered over every decision. He influenced every decision. He second-guessed every decision. He broke the rules so his sons would have advantage. And we don't have to look too far to our left or our right to see those examples in our society right here in Little Rock. And so I think that those things that we see reflected and refracted on the stage make this play immediate. And so I hope that gets at something of what you were asking. We can probably do one more question. Yes.
This is on another subject, but I wanted to get Robert's impression of our lovely Petty Jean, what he thinks of it.
Oh. Well, Petty Jean is a very, very, the only word that really came to mind immediately was magical. And then I found out that it is on Indian ground, Native American ground. It's 1,000 feet above the gorgeous river valley and the Arkansas River. And the way where we are, the way it has been developed by the late Governor Rockefeller is, you know, it's just a rare occurrence with the happiest cattle I have ever seen in my life. They actually smile and wave when I ride by. And we have 3 little baby geese now on the little lake on the property that they've given us to live at. And it's just, it's like a bit of, I don't know, a gift of a vacation home that people rarely come across. So it's a privilege, it's been a privilege and a joy living there.
I want to thank our panelists. I hope you will all come see Death of a Salesman. It runs until May 12. After that, it's Avenue Q, which is slightly different than Death of a Salesman. But we're very glad you were joining us today. We want to thank Skip and everybody here at the Clinton School for having us and for their continued support of Arkansas Rep. It's an honor to be associated with this fine institution. I want to thank everybody here, and I want to thank our panelists, and thank you for joining us today.